guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Karen Wants to Sue Me for This. I live in a small town in South Portugal. It's usually pretty calm. One day I had a knock on my door and it was a woman visibly angry. The conversation went like this as I remember. Me. Hi, can I help you? Karen. Yes, your car is illegally parked, it's blocking the sidewalk. I look over to the street and there are 3 cars parked on the street, all completely legally parked. None of them were mine. Me. That's impossible, my car is at a mechanic. Karen. You don't lie to me. At this point I have a screaming woman at my door. I just closed the door on her face and went back to talk with my friends who I was playing with. She was knocking on my door so hard that my friends could hear it from my mic. Okay, couple days pass and I had a family dinner at my house, so my driveway was filled up with cars. My driveway takes 4 cars, so I had to park my car on the street. I heard a knock on my door. I thought it was my grandparents. I was still waiting for them because they got into a bad traffic jam. I opened the door and I see the same women I saw last week. We again talked, and it went like this. Karen. Your car again illegally parked. I noticed that she was watching me move my car for my cousin whose car had a key problem, and he wasn't being able to lock the car and he didn't want to leave it on the street. Me. Ma'am, do you see that my car is parked on a parking spot? Karen. How dare you? I don't know why she got offended. And then she screamed. Karen. Help. After that my friend who is very close to the family came out of the house and said, "I'll call him Mark." Mark. What's going on? Me. I don't. Karen interrupts me. Karen. Your little friend hit me with his car. Yes, you heard it right, she is claiming I had hit her with my car when I didn't even left my house. As that happens my grandparents pull up. Mark. That can't be true, he didn't leave the house. Karen. You will hear from my lawyer. As she turns around and walks away, she bumps into my grandpa making him fell. Luckily most of my front yard is grass and little bushes. My grandpa fell onto the grass. As soon as that happens, she goes away, but before that she took a photo of my license plate. Me and my friend both run to help my grandpa. He wasn't hurt. I then discover that she actually filled a police report for hit and run and she is now trying to sue me, but in Portugal you can't sue someone just because you want to. I quickly told my lawyer about this, and he said she wins the case I can face up to 2 to 3 years in prison plus a big fine and losing my driver's license. I have cameras in my house so that footage could help me with this. But now it has been about 4 weeks since that and I haven't heard from her again. The next story is titled, I was arrested falsely for trespassing while picking up my wife from work, and the police impounded my car. Okay, so I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of the hospital where my wife works. I was minding my own business when I received a knock on the window by 2 officers. We go through the routine license, register, etc. etc. Shortly after officer asked me why just sitting here in the dark of night. I explain I waiting on my wife. The officer says okay, have a good night, and I thought that was the end of it. Shortly my wife calls and let me know that she needs 30 more minutes, last minute paperwork. No problem, I told her. About 20 minutes I hear a knock on the window by another officer. I roll down, he tells me to step out of the car. I comply with his command. He tells me turn around, I do. And he Mirandizes me, and says I'm under arrest for trespassing. So, I got taken to the station 7. Which is lucky for me because I know everyone and work with them a lot. I was held for 6 hours and released. With an apology from a captain named Chief for his officer's actions, and he will be reprimanded and punished accordingly. He informed he spoke with a judge and the judge said my case was dismissed. However, when I got home I found out my car was towed and impounded. Here is my question, is there a way to get my car back from the police impound lot? I don't want to pay the ridiculous amount they're charging me for hold up my car. Or do I need to get a lawyer? Edit. In my haste to write this I tried to keep it short and sweet and missed putting in a few details that give a better understanding. To be clear, the reason I was released was the officer who arrested me had no grounds to do so. That's why no charges were filed against me. And when chief spoke to a judge was not official or anything of the sort, it was more or less two people chatting about it, and said if my case would go to court it would probably be dismissed as there was not any evidence I had committed a crime. Update. I called Station 7 and spoke with a sergeant. I explained to him what happened and about my situation. His advice was to just pay the fee and be done with it. Thanks everyone for the advice. The next story is titled, Neighbor Cut Down a Half Acre of Trees on My Mom's Land. New York. It started maybe a month ago when the neighbor cut down a few trees on my mom's property. She noticed this, and very quickly went to talk to him in person, giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe he thought it was his land. He cut some more trees down. Next, she sent him a letter and let him know that they were not on his property and to stop cutting trees down. He said okay, sorry, he would stop. Soon after, he cut some more down. She also noticed that the guy moved the property marker that delineated their properties, which is also apparently illegal, according to the forester, I think. This time, my mom sent him a cease and desist letter via certified mail, telling him to stop cutting her trees down. Upon recommendation of someone, she also went ahead and posted the property to make sure there was no confusion over whether or not the guy was trespassing on her land. She recommended him to get a survey. He said he would pay half, and she basically told him no. You're the one having trouble with knowing where your property is. You need to pay for the survey. Well, just yesterday, my mom had a forester come in to value the trees that were cut down by this man on her property to see if it would be worth pursuing the issue further. Come to find out that he had now cut down a half acre of about 30 trees that did not belong to him, each valued at about $200 each. So, a cool $6,000 worth of trees that didn't belong to him. She was told by the forester to mark the stumps and take photos. I'm not sure what action she's planning next other than getting those photos, but I wanted to field the conflict to you guys. I believe she is planning on suing him for the value of those trees. If she has to pay for the survey herself, she also plans on tacking that cost on. Are there any specific actions you'd recommend she take that she hasn't already taken to help her case? I believe she is planning on representing herself and not getting an attorney involved. She is very mistrusting of lawyers, if at all possible. This issue really burns me up. This jerk moved out there, and my mom is in her late 60s. The guy probably thought he was going to get away with taking advantage of having an old woman as his neighbor that he assumed wouldn't do anything about it. Good thing my mom doesn't take anyone's BS. Thank you all for any help. Update. Just talked to my mom. I think she's a little stressed and intimidated by all this. Apparently, this a hole is well connected in her small country town, and she's worried he'll get away with it. I assured her that this doesn't matter, especially if we can get NYSDEC law enforcement involved, especially since the police officer she originally called was no help and told her it was a civil matter and not a criminal one. She's agreed to talk to a lawyer, so I'm gonna try and find someone with experience in tree law. Apparently, the guy also dumped a bunch of asphalt on the property line which screwed up the survey marker, so I'm wondering if we could also definitely sue for additional property damage. If I have to go up to NY myself to help with this myself, I may do so. I'm fuming. Thank you all so much for your help. The next story is titled, My Neighbors Set Off Firecrackers Because I Walked My Cat. So, some background, I live in a 3-story apartment building with my mom and my little brother. We are not really that well off, so it's all we can afford. We have had problems with these neighbors for about 5 months now. The rest of the building has given them nicknames, so that's how I'll refer to them. The Old Crow and Dumbass D. Dumbass D is Old Crow's son. They live in the bottom apartments of the complex. Dumbass D has stacks of charges under his belt, from threats of assault to saying he was going to hurt and do horrid things to one of my neighbors. He screams for no reason, scares the children of the complex, and he has also avoided paying rent for over 7-ish months and none of us know how. I have many stories from them, but this one finally broke me in ways I didn't know I could be broken. It's a bit of a long read, so buckle up. So, it was a pretty normal day. I had just got out from school, and I had to take some trash out. My cat wanted to go out too. Kiki, he's a good boy and never normally runs off, and he comes inside when told. He's like a dog. So, I bring out the trash with Kiki and let him stay out for a bit longer, just sniffing some cobwebs and other cat things. So having nothing to do, I tread around in the fresher snow, leaving some footprints. Now this patch of snow is around 5 feet away from Old Crow's window. I have no intentions of making her squawk, so I keep my head down and crunch some snow. Kiki finishes sniffing and walks back inside with me close behind. As soon as I walk in the building, I hear the old crow yelling about something. I couldn't quite make it out, all but my mom's name. Putting two and two together, I assume she's pissed I was even in breathing room of her window. So, I let my cat in my apartment and go over to my next door neighbors where my mom and the lady who lived there were talking. I tell them that the crow was upset and we all just kinda laughed it off, nothing much she would do. Or so we assumed. After a bit of chat, we hear a loud bang. It sounded like gunshots, coming from out back. My mom told me to go look out my window to see what it was. I did. And could see absolutely nothing, so I decided to swallow my fear and go out to see what it was myself. I turned on my phone camera and headed out back. My heart races now thinking about it. It was scary. I make it out back to get recording of the blast of a firecracker. Before I can think, everyone out back is screaming. The old crow is yelling, screaming and calling me names, and so is dumbass D, who is still setting of firecrackers. Now I'm never someone to lose my temper, but after months and months of keeping my mouth shut, letting everyone fear these people, letting kids cry not wanting to leave their apartments, I let loose. Screaming at them, telling them that they should be adults. It was a screaming match. I can still feel the ringing in my ears, my voice still hurts. My mom heard the yelling and came down. So now it was a four-way scream-off between a high schooler, his mom, an old baddie woman and her violent son. Firecrackers still going off in the background. Finally, the cops were called, and my mom dragged me upstairs. I stopped the recording. It was 7 minutes long. I end up calling a friend and just breaking down. My anxiety was high and my brain in shambles. I needed to let loose the fear I swallowed. After the quick call, the cops appear, asking info about the situation. I tell them and show the video. I can still hear dumbass D screaming at an officer and old crow crying crocodile tears trying to convince the officers that they were victims. It still pisses me off. The cop walks away to converse with other officers, all who have been here before. They know about dumbass D and the crow. After what feels like ages, the cop comes back and states that possession of firecrackers is illegal with no signed permission. Dumbass had no permission. The cops leave and me, my mom, and my other neighbor just stand in the hall. After all this, after all these months, the pain, the PTSD, the everything. He was going to be brought to court by the cops for firecrackers. We all then go inside, and just, spend the rest of our day thinking. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I'll sleep well again. The last story is titled, 2 years into land contract and sellers are threatening eviction. Kentucky. My husband and I purchased a home in 08-15 on a land contract. Terms were $8,000 down and $800 a month. Only stipulations where we pay the property taxes, provide homeowners insurance at our expense and let the neighbor use our private driveway to access her outbuilding when necessary. The property came with 17+ acres of land, mainly hillside. So, fast forward to today when my husband decides that it's a nice day to cut some trees and cover up some exposed gas lines that a timber thief from years ago messed up. Within an hour of him starting his saw, one of the 6 sellers, all siblings, called me at work to inform me that we had broken our land contract and she would be starting the eviction process in a court of law, by the letter of the law on Monday morning. She also informed me that herself and her 2 sisters were on the property taking pictures and that our grass was too high and was posing a personal hygiene issue. Not really sure what that means, although my grass is ankle high, however there is nothing in the contract stating a required or acceptable length of grass. My main question is, should I be worried? Can they seriously evict us for clearing trees from a hillside when the contract doesn't state anything regarding that being forbidden? Any help would be appreciated. Update. The gist of it was that my husband and I had attempted to purchase a home on a land contract. 2 years into the agreement, the sellers got cold feet and tried to use a plethora of imaginary problems to have us removed from the property. Also, in the op, people were assuming that lack of credit is what was keeping us from financing, which kinda hurt my feelings, but oh well, lol. The reality of it is that my husband is self-employed and so was I. His business was only 2 years old. Work history included 12 years at the same job beforehand though, and my business was just getting off the ground. This was concern enough for the bank to refuse us a mortgage. So anyways, on with the bad, and I do mean bad news. This will be long. The original complaint we received had about 20 bullet points of complaints, issues. I did hire a real estate attorney to respond. When I spoke with him, he named his price, I paid him in cash and got a receipt. He assured me that what I was paying him was enough to cover everything, even if we did end up having to go to court. I was happy to have some help. Fast forward 2 to 3 months after we have sent our response, the sellers reply back with another answer that requires an answer from us. Well, wouldn't you know, the attorney I hired now wants another $7,000 to respond to these people. Are you kidding me? I say no, I can't afford that. I end up having to go to court alone so that our current attorney can remove himself from our case. He's using the grounds of non-payment. I explained to the judge, with my receipt in tow, that yes, I did pay him, but now he wants double what I've already paid in order to continue representing us. We all agree it's best if we part ways. So, I find a new attorney to represent us, and we basically start all over. Yay. Now, here's the fun part. My husband and I know we own less than $20,000 on our house. We want to quit this back and forth BS and just pay off our contract and be rid of these people. The things they were doing while we were in the midst of these court dates was insane. Examples include putting baby gates up in our driveway so we couldn't back out without either running over them or getting out to move them, staying outside until daylight, cackling and screaming with video cameras. We both have to get up at 4 and 5 a.m. respectively, putting up no trespassing signs on our side of the property and calling cops when we come home from work. That was a fun one. The list is endless. They were crazy, but I loved my house. So, I just put up with it. I recorded their craziness with my phone when I could, and I took photos of all their attempted booby traps. Fast forward to our next court date. Our attorney mentions that we would like to pay our contract off and move on. Judge agrees and asks seller's attorney what they think. They don't agree and proceed to go a little off the rails in the courtroom. Judge explained they have two options. They can either accept our payoff or the property can be treated like a foreclosure and auctioned off to the highest bidder on the courthouse steps. The only way option 2 would be viable is if we were returned our down payment and everything we had paid in the last 2 years because we were not in violation of the contract in any way. The sellers didn't like that either because it would have been a fairly expensive burden. They agreed to take our payoff and call it a day. Judge gives us 30 days to pay it off and sets a show cause date for next month. Okay LA, here's where I screwed up. Big time. So, I'm feeling good. We finally got a win in court. I'm hoping I can pay off my house and build an infinite-sized privacy fence, so I don't have to see these people anymore and be done with it. But I'm also feeling kinda petty after being jerked around by these people for a year. So, I, stupidly, decide that I'm not going to give them a cent until the 29th day. I am so stupid. On the day before the money is due, my husband and I go out to see a movie and have dinner to celebrate our anniversary. We're in the middle of watching it when I get a series of texts from my best friend letting me know my house is on fire and is a total loss. I lost my 13-year-old cat, my son lost his 10-year-old lizard and 2 fish tanks and his daegu. Thankfully my dog was able to escape. The house was an entire loss. We had nothing but the clothes on our backs. That was 9 months ago. We had really good insurance coverage, but we haven't received a dime of it yet. Know why? Because the sellers are suing is for our entire insurance payment, never mind the fact it was about 5 times what we owed. So, there we are. Homeless and in the middle of another legal battle with these crazy people. Thanks for listening.